Hello, everybody. How you doing today? My name is Tony Zano, and this is episode 12, season 2, episode 12 of the newly titled Online Marketing Moves. I had to make that announcement because people find the podcast, and if they go back, July, August, September, they'll hear a whole. You see the title, Online Marketing Moves, but then you hear a guy screaming, Affiliate Party Podcast, So it's like, every now and then I need to throw in that, hey, this is the newly titled, podcast. But anyway, how are you doing today? What's today, Wednesday? I believe today is Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, December the 2nd, 2020. And we are coming to you live from the chilly city of Statesville, North Carolina. We are on our way to like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ugh. It's cold. I think it snowed up there yesterday. It's supposed to be 40 degrees up there today. I tell you what, folks, in summertime, I don't really look at the weather unless I read about or you get an alert about a tornado warning or a hurricane, something like that. So in the summertime, the weather, I really don't look at it. The wintertime starting yesterday, I was like, I gotta get back to watching the weather 24/7. But hopefully within the next month, because I finally was able to get a hold of somebody about this. I told you these people been giving me the runaround about a local position. So we finally got a hold of somebody. Email. Of course, I talked to the guy. He was like, "I'm gonna call for you." So I said, and this is one thing you have to learn, ladies and gentlemen. When people say they're gonna call, you have to follow up the next day or a couple of days after that. I always follow up when it comes to yourself. I've learned that you can't sit back and let people do things for you because they won't do things for you. You know what I mean? It's like they say, "Oh yeah, well, as soon as we get," I've been talking to this lady for like 3 months, and this lady been giving me the same BS, and I was like, I gotta finally get a hold of somebody else, and then I finally saw somebody in a different building where I work. And I was like, boom, there they go. And I'm gonna trap them. And I trapped them, and I started asking questions. And they gave me the information. They gave me the card. They wrote the number down. And I said, And the guy said, I'll talk to somebody. And I said, yeah, okay. And then yesterday I said, nah, we not ready. We not gonna play it cool. We not gonna wait around. I got to go. I'm trying to go home. I'm trying to be home every night. Me and my wife want to have a baby. Can't have a baby being in Statesville, North Carolina when you live in Georgia. How does that work? Of course not. Plus, besides that, by the time me and my wife, Lord willing, she gets pregnant, by the time that she has the baby, I'll be at home because I'll be full-time self-employed, so it doesn't matter, But I just want to go home anyway to see my wife every day. So, transition, you know what I mean? But anyway, today we are going to talk about, this is a transition into the podcast now. We're getting better at this. Today we are going to talk about leadership. Oh yeah, before we get started. No, we'll get started. I had something else I was going to discuss, but never mind. Anyway, today we are going to talk about leadership. Now, being a leader doesn't mean being a dictator. Being a leader doesn't mean you're right 100% of the time. Being a leader doesn't mean you're the boss of everybody. You don't have to be the top executive to be a leader. Being a leader is you know, standing up for yourself, speaking up, you know, taking a stand. Being a leader is being an example of a, you know, say if you work at a job, no matter what job you work, being a leader is being a, you know how if you see your boss, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of being a leader. I remember when my cousin, he was the manager at a warehouse in Indiana. Okay, it was a food place, like ice cream. No, it was a cold. They say a cold storage warehouse where you bring like frozen food and stuff like that to the warehouse, like ice cream, you know, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of jazz. So I remember I had a load going over there, and I was like, oh, I get to see my cousin. And so, you know, I went over there, and my cousin, he had just got the job. He had just moved from Missouri to Indiana. And I remember I went over there, and I backed into the door, and he didn't know I was there, so I went to surprise him. So I go around the front, and I said, you know, can I speak to, you know, my cousin? And she said, and you? I said, oh, I'm just here to deliver a load, but I said, he's my cousin. I said, he's my baby cousin. I want to surprise him because I haven't seen him in a long time. And she said, okay. And then she called him. He came to the front. You know, of course, we did our greeting. And, you know, he walked me into his office, and I remember he sat back, and I was like, man, you got it good you got it good in here, baby. And he said, yeah. He said, look at me, man. Look at the office. And he had a nice office and everything like that. And I remember he said something, and I said, so what? You know, I was asking him questions. I'm like, so what time do you come in? And he was like, oh, I can come in anytime I want to. He's like, you know, we supposed to get started at like 8, but he said, I come in 11, 12. And I thought to myself, 11 and 12? Thinking, how are you the manager of a, you know, it's $1 million company or whatever, and you are in charge of this, and, you know, every other business that you deal with, they start at 8 a.m. And you're showing up at 11 o'clock, and he's like, oh, it's cool. He's like, you know, I'm salary, so I can show up when I want to. I said, I don't know if it works like that. I know they want you to show up at 8 o'clock, and you're supposed to leave at 5, or you stay as late as they want you to stay. But I don't think you're showing up at 11 o'clock. He said, oh, nah, man, it's cool. He said, I can do what I want to do. Now, is that being a good leader? Of course not. If you work for that company and you saw your bosses coming in at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, does that mean you can show up late? Of course not. If you are a leader for your own self and not a follower, you know, you would not show up late just because your boss shows up late. It doesn't work that way. I remember one time, me and my brother, we worked at a warehouse. And it used to be, when I first got out of the military, our first job was working at a warehouse with my brother. And it's a very interesting place. It was the polar opposite of me being in the military. In the military, there's a lot of structure going on. At this place, there was no structure. There was no leadership. And I remember every Sunday, because we was off on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and we come to work on Sunday nights. And Sunday nights we had a boss. His name was Jerome. And Jerome was a sort of a lackadaisical fella. Jerome would basically sit out in his car, and I don't know what he done. I'm not gonna accuse anybody of anything. I don't know if he was out there, you know, with the ladies, out there doing drugs. I don't know what he was doing. But Jerome was the man. He was the shift. He was in charge of our shift because we worked from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I think 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., something like that. But, so we would get in at 10 p.m. You would see Jerome at 10 o'clock. By 10:05, Jerome would go back to his car. And a lot of people would, as soon as Jerome, they was like, oh, well, Jerome going back out to his car. And so they would all sit down. They would sort of hang around. They would do nothing. And there was one person. I'm gonna give him. I normally give him a hard time, but I'm gonna compliment him today. It was one person who would keep doing their job. And quite frankly, I'll be honest. I didn't know what I was doing at that job, so I was already lost. So once he left, I was kind of like, "What are we supposed to do?" And I would just sort of sit there. I would try to get something done, but most of the time I would work at it for about 3 hours. I would quit, but the one person out of all of us that would keep working was my brother. My brother I look at my brother, and my brother would hit that button, and because we worked at a place where we put, beans in boxes, all kinds of beans, lima beans, brown beans, white beans, navy beans, beans. I learned a lot about beans, but my brother, he would put these. My brother he worked at a thing where you hit a button, the beans would come into a box. My brother folded the box, and you see my brother over there just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He would keep going. My brother showed leadership, because everybody else was like, I'm following Jerome. I don't know. I'm not gonna do nothing today. I'm taking the night off. My brother, he kept working. And then my brother, he would be like, "Where's Jerome? I need to ask Jerome a question about the production." And they'd be like, "Man, leave." And people would be like, "Leave Jerome alone." And my brother would say, "No, man, we gotta get the work done." So my brother showed leadership at the job when nobody else showed any kind of leadership. Nobody showed any kind of get up and go. They didn't show anything like that. And so that's an example of being a leader without being, quote unquote, in charge of anything, So, the most important thing is being a leader, being an example for yourself, making sure that you are doing what you need to do. And yeah, you don't want to be following. There's nothing wrong, because in order for you to lead anything, you have to learn how to follow as well. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't work. You just don't wake up one day and you're like, "No, I'm never going to listen to anybody. I'm never going to follow anybody." The moment you find yourself not listening to anybody, now I'm not saying you have to listen to everything that everybody says, because of course that's foolishness. You're not a follower then. You're just a sheep. But in order for you to be a leader, at some point you have to, be willing to follow something, follow some guidelines, follow some laws, follow something, You can't just be like, no, my way or the highway, You don't, that type of leadership, it would not work. You know what I mean? So don't be that person. Now, you want to be your own person. You want to be in charge of you, but you also, and to be a good leader, you have to, it's like, we'll use football for example. If you and I are in charge of a football team, okay, and it's draft day coming up, and we say, we get together and we say, "Hey, we're gonna draft this guy from this, we're gonna draft a guy from the University of Delaware, We'll draft a quarterback. We'll use quarterback for example. We draft a quarterback, okay? First year, he's a rookie. We cut him some slack. By the third year, we go, you know what? This guy is not working out. I tell you, this guy's not working out. And you go, no, we're going to be right about this, At this point, this is where leadership comes into play. If you draft a quarterback in the first round, and obviously he's not working out, obviously he's not the right pick, then the worst kind of leadership is the worst kind of leader is the ones that always have to be right. They're like, "No, I'm right about this. I'm going to be right about this." No, it's, "Hey, I made a mistake. He's not the right choice. Let's cut our losses, or let's put somebody else in the game." You know what I mean? And then let's move forward. The worst kind of leadership is the people that always that they have to be right. Everything's not gonna be right. Everything's not gonna every choice you make is not gonna be 100% right. You know, some things you do just don't work, and you have to switch, and you have to make a change, and you have to say, you know what, I was wrong, I made a mistake, boom, let's move forward. That's being a leader. That's leadership. Being a leader is going down with the ship, but don't take one choice is not the whole ship. You know, one choice is not 100 choices. You might be wrong in 10 out of 100 choices. You take those 10 choices you're wrong at, you just admit it. You say, hey, you know what, guys, girls, I was wrong. That's it. And you move forward from that. You don't always try to justify, your choices. Because sometimes we all make piss poor choices sometimes, and that's okay. But just admit it, It's like, and another thing about leadership, don't always, you remember like these stores, like, a lot of these stores, like, the JCPenney's, the Kmart's, the, the Blockbusters, if they would have had some, and leadership is not, if you become the CEO of a company, your job is not just to get behind the wheel and hold the wheel, It's like, how the people from Netflix, they wanted, I remember I read this thing about how Blockbuster could have bought Netflix. And they was like, oh no, we don't need that. Leadership is about vision as well, you know what I mean? Like, you need to have an eye on the future. You don't want to be stuck in the same thing. Being a leader is not about what we are doing. What in the past this worked. It's like, no, what do you see? What are you going to see down the road? What's in your future? What do you think what is going to happen? Because Blockbuster, in 1999, I remember 1999, all of us, anybody that was of age in 1999 listening to this podcast knows Blockbuster was it. I remember going to Blockbuster when I was in the Navy, and I remember I walked in, because I'll give you a cool fact. I never been to Blockbuster until I joined the Navy, okay? I've never seen one, never been close to one, yada, 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 whatever, okay? But the first time I walked into Blockbuster, it was like 1998, 1999, I believe. And I walked in, and I was like, oh, wow. And they had all these different videos, all these different video games, and I was like, oh, this is cool, And I thought to myself, man, they're going to be around. I thought to myself, I said, man, Blockbuster. I said, when I get out of the Navy and go back home, I'm going to have to figure out why come we don't have a Blockbuster, and see if they can get one going in the little town I'm living in, I think about 4 or 5 years after that, I believe. Not even 4. Well, all I know is within that decade of me walking into Blockbuster for the first time, Blockbuster was gone, non-existent. Why? Because they didn't have a leadership that had a vision. They didn't have a plan, not a good plan. I guess Blockbuster's plan was, we're just gonna hold the wheel, And JCPenney, the same thing. I mean, JCPenney used to be big. They had the catalog, Sears. All these companies had catalogs in the 80s and 90s. The JCPenney's, the Sears, the Kmart's. They was all just sort of held the wheel, And look how that worked out. Most of these places are, if they ain't all closed up now, they're pretty much almost dead at this point, non-existent. Leadership is seeing a vision, having a plan, and going you see the times changing. You have to change with the times. It's like being a basketball coach these days. If you was a coach in the 80s, of course, you would put your center down in the paint. You would throw him the ball, Patrick Ewing, okay? You say, hey, Mark Jackson, dribble down to the court, throw the ball into Patrick Ewing. Everybody stand back. Patrick Ewing's going to work his way. He's going to dribble. Patrick Ewing's going to either kick out, take a shot, something like that. And that's how the offense ran in the 80s, Can you imagine if you're a basketball coach now, throwing the ball down to the center every time? You're not gonna, and just shooting twos, it's not gonna work out for you. You won't be a coach very long. Nowadays, the offense the basketball has changed. The philosophy has changed. People rather take a three than a long two. You know what I mean? So the philosophy has changed. Some things don't change, but some things do change. And for you to lead people, you have to be flexible. You want fluidity. You don't want to be stuck in the mud. Of course, some things never change, but some things do change, and you have to change with them. That's being a leader. And of course, as we are winding this podcast down, just because you might not be El Presidente of your company or wherever you work, but that doesn't mean you cannot be a leader, because a lot of people these days, even though they are in those leadership positions, a lot of people these days, they want to be friendly with everybody. And of course, as you well know, in order to lead, in order to stand out, to guide a boat, you're going to make decisions that people are not going to like, and that's okay. You just have to learn that. You have to learn from that. Every decision you make, people are not going to like. Everything that you do, people are not going to like. And that's the whole thing. This is not, it's not kumbaya. This is your life. This is your job. This is your career. This is whatever you want to do. And of course, you be a leader at home, be a leader wherever, at the workplace, in your church, you have to stand up, speak up, you're not gonna be, and of course, as you well know, you're not gonna be liked by everybody. Not everybody's gonna be a fan of your leadership, but that's okay. You just have to learn. You'll learn that. You know what I mean? You will learn that. It's like, if you want, because as you well know, I want this podcast to grow, and I want this podcast to grow, and I want this podcast to get bigger. And down the road, I am going to, in order to expand and everything like that, I'm going to have to, probably hire, get somebody to produce it. Somebody's going to have to edit it, things of that nature, And, well, as you well know, I'm sure it'll be somebody that I'll probably say something, because I talk. I don't have a script. I don't use a script. And I'll probably say something that somebody might deem, they might not like it, this, that, and the other. And somebody will tell me, oh, we shouldn't do that. And then at some point, I have to make a choice. Do I keep it in, or do I put it out, Those are the type of things that you have to deal with when you want to expand your little, when you want to expand your, let's say like a online, or your content, you start making more content, people are not going to like everything you do, but that's okay. You are in charge of you are a leader, and you will have to tell them, yay, we're going to go with it, or nah, we'll cut it out. But that's up to you. It's how you feel. It's your choice. At the end of the day, you are in charge of this whole online space. You will be in charge of your, you know, the thing you want to do, the content you want to produce. You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind. But you are in charge. At the end of the day, you are definitely in charge of you. You know. So just be the leader that I know you are. You know. And it doesn't matter if people don't like you. It doesn't matter if, you know, because I mean, quite naturally, no matter what you do, it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, people didn't like Jesus Christ, so I mean, you know what I mean. So it doesn't really matter about, you know, people liking you. You know, people don't like. Sometimes people don't like leaders. I mean, they respect you, they don't like you. So leadership is important. And the more you lead yourself, the more you lead whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be a part of, I think the better off you'll be. Now, you know, of course, as we said, you know, winding this down, being bossy to people doesn't make you a leader, you know. Being pushy to people doesn't make you a leader, you know. Step number 1, know who you are. That's the most important step. Because if you don't know who you are, if you're a fraud, people will see that in a short time, you know, and it will not work out for you. It's just like if you do, like I do this podcast, and then I talk about different topics. The stories I tell on this podcast, I'm pretty sure you're not going to hear from Joe Blow and Sally Sue down the street, you know, in another podcast. You know, I use material that I've gotten from my life and things that I've watched, things that I enjoy watching, and everything like that, and then I use them in my own podcast. And that is being a leader right there, being original. You know, be original. You know, I can't be my brother, I can't be my mother. I can only be me, who I am. Who the good Lord created. That's all I can be. That's all who you can be. To me, that's the most important step about being a leadership, is knowing who you are. You know, who are you? What do you stand for? You know, all that other stuff is great. You know, mission statements, you know, of course, the example you want to set a good example. You know, please don't be like if you are in charge of a group, you are in charge of a company, you know, set the example. Don't do the do as I do, not as I, you know, do as I say, not as I do. You know, don't be that kind of person. You know, really get in there. If you expect people to show up on time, you should show up on time too. You know, don't be like my cousin, showing up 3 hours late. And you know what happened to him? I remember I thought to myself, I don't know. I said, man, they're going to try to get rid of him. And I think about 9 months later, he got fired from that job. So, yeah, don't set an example that you want other people to follow. Don't tell people to show up on time and then you show up late. Or don't tell people to work hard and then you're the laziest person they got in the outfit. So be that kind of leader, you know. If you want high marks in your company, your organization, if you want things done in a high manner, of course you should. You have to come with the same thing, you know. You have to be, you know, you want to come with detail. You want to be organized. You want to be prepared. It's a whole thing. All right. That's it for now. The leadership, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we'll talk more about that as the down the road, because eventually I will start to have more leadership stories as my journey gets bigger and bigger. So I would definitely share any story, you know, that I run into. But that's it for now. That's it for the podcast. I gotta get going. I appreciate you listening, by the way. I really appreciate it. As always, and we will be back tomorrow with another hard-hitting episode of the world's greatest podcast on the planet, in the universe, in the galaxy, in the stratosphere. Okay. My name is Tony Zano. This is Online Marketing Moves, and we will talk to you later. And as always, everybody, peace.